Cold opening. Reflections never lie. In every home, on every wall, there hangs a mirror. We pass them by each day, rarely stopping to question the face staring back. But what if just one seat blinked, and you didn't? There's an object hidden in the hills of Black Hollow, not buried, preserved. An heirloom passed from hand to trembling hand, kept under sheets, in cellars, and behind bolted doors. They call it the widow's looking glass, but it doesn't show your reflection. It shows your regret. Would you look into a mirror said to reflect your darkest secret before it pulls you in? A legend older than your grandmother's nightmares. They say it was crafted in 1861 by a grieving widow, Elizabeth Mirrow, who lost her husband in the fire that consumed Black Hollow's town hall. She prayed not for peace, but for one final glimpse of his soul. And something answered. She etched an incantation on the back of the mirror frame. Not Latin, not scripture. Something else. Something wrong. What if the object that lets you speak to the dead doesn't let you leave? Elizabeth alone, in a stone-walled chamber, standing before the mirror. Her breath fogs the glass. A shadowy second figure begins to appear behind her. Every person who's looked into the glass since has seen something behind them. Not their shadow, not a trick of light. Something alive. Something waiting. Multiple witnesses. One cursed object. And every reflection ends the same, with silence. The mirror of Black Hollow was sealed behind church stone in 1923. But someone pried it loose in 2007. A collector. He hasn't been seen since. Would you dare unearth an artifact sealed away for 84 years and place it on your bedroom wall? Tonight, we trace the legend, we review the footage, and we reveal the survivors. If they're really who they say they are, you shouldn't have looked. The collector, he bought the curse. It was in a dusty, cluttered antique store. Wind howls outside. The door creaks open. A man enters, face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He walks towards something behind a red velvet curtain. In 2007, a private collector known only as Mr. Vexley made headlines in underground circles after purchasing a forgotten relic from an estate auction just outside Marlow Creek. No provenance, no description, only a warning etched on a tin plaque in broken English. Do not show to the living. In another veil, a tall rectangular object draped in black cloth, strapped inside a wooden crate. The writing on the plaque is shaky, almost like it was carved with shaking hands. Mr. Vexley was no stranger to the occult. He dealt in death masks, embalming tools, and relics tied to disappearances and seances. But this was different. The crate arrived on a stormy Tuesday. Witnesses say lightning struck 3 times during delivery, and when Vexley opened it, the screaming started. He opened the crate alone, but neighbors say 2 voices were heard screaming that night. Interviewee, Vexley's neighbor, voice altered for anonymity. He was obsessed, said he saw someone else in the mirror, someone who knew things. The next day, he boarded up every window. 3rd day, he stopped answering the door. By the 5th, the mirror started crying. 1 week later, the police forced their way in. Vexley was gone. No signs of forced entry, no footprints in the dust, just a smear of blood across the mirror's edge and a handprint on the inside of the glass. What if the thing trapped behind the mirror is no longer alone? Trapped voice. That mirror now sits in a locked facility, deep below Stonebrook Archives, with warnings etched in 6 languages. But some say it still hums when the moon is full. And if you dare to stand close enough, you'll see someone staring back. It remembers every soul it's seen, and it's waiting for more. The lost sister, something followed her home, in a quiet countryside home. Wind rustles through broken shutters. A faint creak echoes. Interior, faded wallpaper, a toppled photo frame. and a dusty hall mirror covered in a black cloth. The year is 2011. Just 4 years after Vexley vanished, another name appears in the mirror's cursed ledger: Margaret Klein, a 24-year-old history student who volunteered to catalog artifacts at the newly opened wing of the Stonebrook Archives. She thought it was just another relic, a curiosity. But what Margaret didn't know was that her own sister, Elsie Klein, would become the next victim of the mirror's twisted gaze. She never touched the mirror, never saw it, but something inside it followed her anyway. Elsie, reenactment. A woman in her early 20s, sitting nervously in a chair, eyes darting, hands trembling in her lap. Elsie whispers. Margaret brought something home, something that wasn't in the crate. I started seeing it in reflections, not directly through glass. Windows, teapots, sunglasses. It was always smiling, but it had Margaret's eyes. 2 days later, Margaret was gone. No sign of forced entry. No exit detected by security footage. But every mirror in the house was cracked from the inside. What if looking near the mirror is enough? What if its reflection now reaches further than glass? Elsie. Her voice is panicked, whispering. Elsie, recording. She's here. In the walls. In the mirror. In the static, please. I can't. She's inside me. Call ends with a sharp static burst. Authorities ruled it as a mental breakdown, but 4 officers called to the home refused to return. One officer, Daryl Lutz, burned all the mirrors in his home. 3 months later, he was found face down in a puddle, staring at a reflection that wasn't his. When every reflection starts to show the same face, whose soul is really in your body? The choir of teeth, voices inside the glass. In a dark corridor, fluorescent lights flicker above. A security camera feed glitches. A mirror rests against a concrete wall cracked, with a faint stain at its base. Soft whispers fill the air. In 2015, the mirror was officially transferred to Facility Blank 13, an underground storage complex for unstable supernatural artifacts beneath the Nevada desert. The object was labeled Item 709A, Unknown Containment, Priority, High Risk of Cognitive Intrusion. Guards were instructed to avoid direct eye contact with the glass, but by week 2, they started hearing the singing. A guard walking past the mirror stops, tilts head, smiles. Blood begins to drip from his ears. They called it the choir of teeth, a sound only the infected could hear. A harmony made from dozens of overlapping voices, all speaking backward. And every voice was traced to someone missing, gone without a trace, vanished after standing in front of this very mirror. If you hear the song, it's already inside you. Waveform analysis of the recorded sound shows chaotic, layered voices repeating a phrase in reverse. Subtitles reveal it says, "Let me in." Interview. Dr. Selwyn Carter, former sight linguist. It wasn't random. The voices were forming words. They weren't begging to be freed. They were coordinating. Like a choir conductor assembling their analyzing symbols traced from the glass surface's scratches, shaped like musical notes. Then came the breach. On the 2020 day, audio logs stopped recording. Guards complained of bleeding gums, and the mirror's surface rippled. For 7 hours, the room was filled with whispering teeth. What if your mouth isn't yours anymore? What if the mirror is singing through you? A technician walks into the vault, freezes, turns slowly toward the mirror, begins to sing, high and soft. One by one, his teeth fall to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Only 3 people made it out. One blind, one mute, and one whose reflection no longer matched their face. That one disappeared shortly after. There's a reflection singing in your dreams. Don't hum along. The reflection that bled. A surgeon's nightmare. A sterile operating room. An antique hand mirror lies wrapped in a linen cloth on a tray marked, "Do not open. Containment required." In 2018, the The mirror resurfaced, this time in the hands of a private collector, known only as Dr. Emmerich Vale, a retired surgeon turned occult enthusiast. He was fascinated by anomalies, particularly those that bled. His final notes, retrieved after his disappearance, read, "It doesn't reflect your image, it reflects your insides." What if your reflection showed not your face, but your fierce organ by organ? A reenactment. Dr. Vale examines the mirror under surgical lights. He removes the cloth. His face pales. The mirror pulses. His own reflection blinks, then begins dissecting itself. Vale was found 3 days later. No signs of forced entry, but his lab was covered in precise incisions labeled in Latin. He had attempted to surgically remove his own reflection. Interview. Dr. Claudia Morn, forensic pathologist. His heart was intact, his brain untouched, but every organ visible in a mirror was gone. What if a mirror could diagnose you, then demand tribute? Dr. Vale, shaky voice. It knows what hurts. It whispers where the pain lives. It said, "I could fix myself if I just opened up." Authorities sealed off the laboratory. But 2 months later, the mirror vanished. Only a faint pool of blood remained, shaped like a human silhouette, lying face down. Can a mirror operate on your soul? And what if you never survived the surgery? Is the mirror dissecting people or revealing what was always beneath the surface? That's the question the legends won't answer. But I'll ask you, if you saw a version of yourself bleeding from the inside, would you look away?